How to use the pen tool. The video series has the workspace set to Essentials Classic. The files I use in the demos are available in the Show More section below this video.
Alright, so now we're going to work with the pen tool inside of Illustrator. So I'm going to zoom out for a moment. Remember, spacebar, command key, option. You can zoom out, spacebar, command, zoom in, just hold the spacebar, and you can use the grab bar and move within your document. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out and take a look at the file that we're going to be working with, pentool.ai, and you'll notice that I have a few illustrations that we're going to use, and we're going to work over the top of these illustrations. And we have some basic steps on the right hand side, and then some windows that would open up, or tool groups that would open up, okay, and brief explanations of what these elements are, okay, that we're going to be working with. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is, over in the layers, you now notice I have three different layers: a work layer, demo of play start, and some text. We have the little eyeballs, and just like in Photoshop, you can show or hide layers. You can lock layers so we don't end up changing anything on these layers. You can click, hold, and drag over multiple boxes to select the features. So I'm going to click and hold on the eyeballs and just drag over them, or click and hold and drag over again to get the eyeballs back. So these are visible. So you can select layers. I'm going to open this panel a little bit more and expand the sub layers, and you'll see all of the elements are shown for every single element on the page, and we can have sub layers to sub layers. Okay, so you can see right away that many layers begin to happen inside of an Illustrator document. So making selections can be a little tough, but again, you can select right on a layer. Okay, you're activating the layer, but clicking on the little dot, the target, that'll target a specific element. And as I click on different elements, you'll see them select. They're in green right now over on the page. Alright, so selecting different elements. Alright, so I'm going to collapse my layers and sublayers, and I'm going to lock demo play start, and I'm going to lock text, select the work layer, and this is the one that I'm going to work on. Okay, so I'll click on the eyeball, and when I click on the eyeball, nothing disappears. Alright, so I know that I'm definitely going to be okay with this layer. Let's zoom in, spacebar, command key, and we're going to zoom in on this part of the document right here. Now first, we're going to go over and get the pen tool. Okay, the pen tool. And you'll notice there are different pen tools. The pen tool, add points, delete points, and a convert anchor point. I often call this a caret, okay, the caret tool, the convert anchor point. And we can switch from one type of point to another type of point, from a stationary point to a Bezier or a curve point. Alright, this is also helpful, the little tear-offs. Okay, so if I move the cursor over to the edge of the tool group, you'll see this right edge here highlight. So this is the tear-off. I'm going to release, and now I have my palette, okay, my pen palette, tool palette, right here, and sometimes it's a little easier to work. Okay, now you'll notice as I'm dragging my tool around, I have those little helper lines in green. You can change Illustrator preferences: general, selection, type, units, slices, user interface, whatever. Okay, so often people change these to meet their specific needs, so you may have to go into your preferences and change one of the tools or one of the features to meet your need. Okay, best thing to do is just experiment with these. Alright, okay, so now we're going to start using the pen tool to create these different objects. Okay, so we'll do that in the next video. Alright, so let's start by going over to our pen tool set and over to the tear off, And I'll just bring my tool set right over here so it's a little easier to work. And then I'm going to zoom in so you can see the path that we're going to create a little bit easier. All right, so let's start by getting our pen tool. You notice there's also pen tool with the plus sign to add, minus sign to remove anchor points, and then our convert for converting the type of anchor point. All right, so I have the pen tool, and you'll notice our options. First, we have a white fill, then we have a black stroke, and right now our stroke is set to 1 point. So I'm going to increase this to 2 points and leave the line style type to uniform. All right, so the way the pen tool works is we first find our start point, which will be right here, click and release. Okay, do not continue to hold the mouse button down, just click once and release. Now if I hold the shift key and go down to the second position and click and release, we constrain a perfect vertical path. If I go over here, hold the shift key and click and release, we have a perfect horizontal path. Now I'm going to go down here, okay, right at this point, and I'm not going to hold the shift key this time because I don't want a diagonal or a straight line. I should say a perfect 45 diagonal. I don't want that. So I'm going to click right here once more, okay? And we now have our open path. And you'll notice this area here, we can't see the background. So let's get the black arrow tool here, click right on our line, and we notice again that our path has a white fill. Let me change this so it's a little easier to see. So in Illustrator, when you have an open path, that's where the beginning point and the ending point do not meet. And we have a fill. Well, the program tries its best to fill this object. Okay? So you notice that doesn't look quite right. So let's go up to our fill for right now and select none. Now we just have a stroke on our line. All right. Let's now get our convert tool right here. And I'm going to go down to this very last anchor point, click and drag out my handles, and rotate this clockwise. And I'm going to use that blue line to help lay out my line segment to follow the gray line underneath. So I'll move this one just like so. And now we'll go up to this point and do something similar. Click and drag, and I'll drag this one like so. Now I'm not worried that this is happening right here. There's two things we can do. We can either A, click on this handle with the convert tool. This will break the union between the two handles on the point. Okay, so we can do this, and if I hold the shift key, this will lock to a perfect horizontal. Okay, or I could just click right on this handle, end of this handle, and the one handle goes away and just leaves us with a single handle. So let's go get the white arrow, and now you can go to this handle and drag this one to change the curvature. Okay, go back down to the bottom anchor point and click. You notice we have two handles. We only need this one. Okay, and right now the handles are moving in unison, so we only need this one. So I'll go and get the convert tool, click on the handle that I no longer need, and now that one is gone. So we'll go back and get the white arrow, the direct select tool, and now we can click on the ends of our handles, and you can change the bias, okay, the bias of your curve, as well as the tension of your curve. All right, so what you want to do is just slowly adjust the length and the position of the handles until you get the shape or the path that you desire. Okay, so our first open path. All right, so previously we made an open path and then modified our points and our handles to create the shape that we desired. All right, so now what we're going to do is just go down to our next example here, and we're going to create a closed path. All right, so I'll start by getting the pen tool, and I'll go to my points, and I'm going to click and move around my object clockwise. So I'll start here at 12 o'clock, then I'll click a point at 3 o'clock, I'll click a point at 6 o'clock, 9, and when I go back to 12 o'clock, you'll notice that the pen tool, when I get close to this point, the tool will have a little circle in the bottom right area. And this lets us know that we are going to close a path. So I'll click again right at this point, and you'll see that these 2 points join. And we can demonstrate this by getting the direct select tool, and when I click and move this point, both line segments move. Okay, so we have a we have a closed path. All right, so if I get the black arrow and click right on my object here, okay, you notice sometimes when you click inside, nothing happens. You have to click right on the path because there's not a fill. And if I go up here now and add a fill, you see what happens. Okay, so I'll set this back to none so I can see the gray lines underneath. Now what we're going to do is convert each of these points, okay, to a Bezier point, so we get our handles and we can start our curvature. And I think it's easier to actually create line segments and then add the curves. Okay, so we'll start off by getting our convert tool, and we'll start here at 12 o'clock. Click. I'm going to hold the shift key, and this will constrain my handles. Okay, and I'm going to add a curve, and then I'm going to go to this point, click, and this time drag down, and I'm holding the shift key, and I'll establish a curve on this side. And now at the bottom, click, hold, drag, hold the shift key, and if your geometry does this, don't worry, just spin the handles, in this case 180 degrees. Now we'll do our point at 9 o'clock, click, drag, hold the shift key, rotate so our geometry isn't folded over on itself, and then drag out the handles. All right, so now what I'm going to do is move this piece over here. So I'm going to make a copy. So if I get the black arrow, the selection tool, and click right on my path, click, hold, begin to drag, now hold the Option key. Do you see the cursor just changed to the double arrows? I'm doing a copy drag. Now hold the Shift key to constrain the drag to a perfect horizontal. Then I'll release. Let me just move over a little bit. And now I can just use the arrow keys on the keyboard to nudge this into place. Okay? So I just guessed by dragging out my handles, but you can see I'm pretty close to that curvature that I'm looking for. But you can always go back and get the white arrow, click on your points, and modify the handles. Okay, continue to hold the Shift key. You can drag these independent of one another. Okay, so I can drag the length of this one more or less. Okay, then go down to this handle. Again, I'm holding the Shift key. You can drag these closer or further away to change the curvature. So what you want to do is click on your points to get the handles, and then go around and slowly modify. So I'll go to the point at 9 o'clock, hold the Shift key, drag this up or down, okay, down or up, until you get the curvature exactly the way you want. And you would go around your geometry, clicking on the points and adjusting the handles until the curve was exactly the way that you want. All right, now we're going to look at some of the options we have for working with our shapes, our lines, okay, our strokes I should say. So let's start by getting the pen tool, and we're going to create more of this interesting compound curve here. All right, so I'll click in the first point, and now I'll go to the second point, and I'll go down to this third point and click. Now, if we want to create this interesting, more complex compound curve here, we'll first go and get the Convert Anchor Point tool, go to our middle point, click, continue to hold, and drag out our handles. Okay? And I'm not going to worry about what shape I get just yet. I'm just going to establish the handles. Then I'll go to this handle, again with the Convert tool, click, hold, and drag. This will break the union between the handles. Okay? Now if something happens and you change your mind, you can always convert back. You just click on the point, you go back to your stationary anchor point here. So we can click and drag to get the Bézier's, okay, the curve, and we can click and go back to a single static point. All right, so let's go ahead and add our handles. Let's go up to this point and click to break the union, and I'll just drag this one over here to this position here. Okay, now to get the other handle back, go and get the white arrow, the direct select tool, click on your point, and adjust the bias and the tension until you're happy with your shape. Okay, great. So everything looks fine, but sometimes you have angles that are much more severe. So I'm going to bring these handles together. Whoops, deselected that. Let's get this back. So I'll bring these handles closer together. And you'll see that our point here no longer is sharp. Okay, so this is called the miter limit. So if we go over to our stroke panel here and we take a look at the limit, the default is 4. If I change this to a higher number, in this case 6, you'll see that we now get our sharp point back. So if you get your angle too sharp or too severe, you'll have to increase the miter limit. I'll increase the miter limit up to this time, at this point, 12. Okay? And you'll notice that this now has a really nice sharp point on it. Okay? So, if you get your handles or too close together, your point won't always be reconciled. The miter, it's how the line segments join. Think about a picture frame and how the ends or the edges of the picture frame meet at 45-degree angles, creating a 90-degree angle. All right, that's a miter. Okay, note that you can also change the types of caps. Okay, you may want a round end cap. You can also change the types of corners. Okay, the corners this is the area that we were just talking about. The default is sharp, but you can change this to different types of corners. Okay, so I'll go back to the default cap, the default corner. You can also align the stroke in certain situations. Okay, we can't here because of our open path, but you can sometimes change the align stroke, okay, to the inside, to the outside, to the middle. You can also let your line be dashed, so you can change. I'll change this to 6 points and just click right here in this box. So you can adjust the length of your lines, also the amount of space between your lines. So I'll just enter 2 here and click in the next box to set this. Okay. You can also add arrowheads to your lines. All right. And you can even change the profile of your lines. Okay. So you can get different interesting lines. All right. So using the limit, caps, corners, dash lines, arrowheads, profiles for your line. All right. A very useful feature in Illustrator is the ability to stroke a path and turn that path into a shape. Okay, so let's start by first creating our path. So I'm going to show my rulers, view, and show my rulers. And I'll go ahead, I already have some guides here, so I'm going to go up to the View menu and go down to Guides and Show Guides. Okay, so what I'll do is go up to the ruler at the top, click, hold, and drag a guide right here. That way I have a beginning and an ending point. Okay, so I'll go and get the pen tool, and I only want this to be a stroke, so I'll go up and I will remove the fill and I will add a black stroke. And for right now, I'll set the stroke to 2 points. So I'll click at this first point and I will go to my second point and click and drag so I get a curve. Okay? Then I'll go and get the convert tool. I'll go to this first point, click, hold, and drag my handles. Now I don't need this point here, so I'll go down and just click on this handle to get rid of that point. Go and get the white direct select tool, click on this point. I don't need this one either, so I'll get the convert tool, click on this point. So now I'm only left with the handles, okay, on the inside of my path. So let's get our white arrow, and now click and drag the bias and the tension until we get the shape, or excuse me, the path that we're looking for. All right, so I'll just keep adjusting the handles until I get the path that I'm looking for. All right, perfect. Let's just move this up a little bit. We'll get the black direct select tool, and we're going to click right on our path, click, hold, start to drag, then hold the Option key. You'll see you get the double arrows because we're making a drag copy. And now I'll hold the Shift key to constrain the drag path to be perfectly straight. And I'll just move my element into my line into position here. Now what we're going to do is increase the stroke. So I'll go right up here to stroke weight, and I'm going to increase the stroke, okay, until I start to create a shape. Now let's move this up a little bit more. Get the black arrow, click right on your object, your stroke. Again, click, hold, begin to drag, then hold the Option key, so we're doing a drag copy, and a Shift key, the Shift key, so we constrain the drag. And I'll move this into position. So you'll notice, if I zoom in on this, okay, you notice we have a path. That's the line running in the center. But what we want to do is create a stroke, okay, or outline our stroke, I should say. So we're going to go up to the Object menu, down to Path, and we're going to outline the stroke. Now you'll see we have points on the outside. All right? Okay, so now we have a shape. So let's get our black arrow, move this up a little bit more, place the cursor right over the object, click, hold, begin to drag, then hold the Option key, then hold the Shift key, and we'll move this right down here. Okay? Now what we'll do is begin to edit our path, and we can do that with our pen tools. So this time I'll use the pen tool with the minus sign and just click on an anchor point. Okay? And we start to alter our shape. So now I might use the white arrow and click on my handles to change the curve. Okay? So once you create a shape, then you can use your pen tools to alter that shape. And remember the direct select tool to click on points to change shape. All right, outline a path. All right, let's take a moment and refine that shape that we made, okay? That path that we outlined. So I have my tool set here for the pen, and I'll just zoom in a little bit so it's a little easier to see my shape. And then I'm going to hide my guides. Don't need those right now. Okay, so let's go and get the white arrow, click on our shape. And when I click on the black part, you'll see that all of the points, all of the anchors are selected. We can click on a single anchor, and you'll see this one is now dark, and the others are white inside, so they are not selected. So we can click on individual anchor points, and then begin to drag our points around to get our basic shape. Now, sometimes you don't need all of the points that are created when you outline the stroke. Okay, so I'll get my pen tool, the delete anchor point tool, and I'm just going to delete a few of these points. Okay, and the fewer the points in your geometry, usually the smoother the borders are going to be, those edges are going to be. Okay, so let's go and get the direct select tool, the white arrow, and now take this point, and I'm going to purposely move this way up here, just so I can get a sense of how I need to create this shape. Okay, so I'll go back and get this point, and I'll place the point right there. And you see we have our handle, and we can drag our handle down. And of course we have this point. Sometimes you just need to move your points around so it's easier to see. Okay? And then when you move them back, you can use the blue line to gauge your movement or your shape. All right? So now I have this handle, and you'll notice if I adjust this handle, okay, rotate this, move the handle in or away, okay, I can adjust the curvature of this point here. All right? So right now this point just has a single handle, but maybe you need to adjust this arc a bit more. So in this case we'll get the convert tool, okay, and I'll click on this anchor point and click and drag like so. Okay, now I don't want this shape, though this is an interesting shape, so I want this to be sharp. So I'm going to click right on this point, excuse me, this handle with the convert tool, and break the union between the two handles. Then go and get the white arrow, again click on your point. Now we can adjust both handles. Okay, and I'm just going to bring this one down, and now I can adjust the bias by dragging away, of course the tension also. All right, and we just make small changes until we get the shape we're looking for. So now I can move this one and move the handle back in, maybe up a little bit, go back to this handle and increase the length of this handle. Okay, then I'll click off and we can see our shape. Okay, so it takes a little time, but use the different tools. Sometimes you need to add a point, take them away, convert your shapes, and of course using the direct select tool to select individual points and adjust your handles. Okay?